Good afternoon, everybody. How are you today? Doing well? Yes, thank you very much. My name's Dr. J.D. Larock. I'm the president and CEO of the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, also known as NFTE. We're a global nonprofit organization that works with young people in the U.S. and around the world to help them learn how to start businesses. And I am glad to be joined here today with a very distinguished panel of other leaders from entrepreneurship organizations, as well as distinguished young entrepreneurs who are going to tell us all about why we believe entrepreneurship education is an innovation that must be embraced by American education right away and in much greater detail. But first, I'm going to begin with a pop quiz. So, audience members, just shout out your responses. Gallup did a poll recently. They asked young students in America to rate their schools, what kind of job they're doing. Excellent, very good, fair, or poor. What percentage do you think rated their school's job as excellent? Shout it out. That didn't work. It's too many voices at the same time. Okay. One person here. Go ahead. 9%. You are super close. 8% was the actual answer. I wish I had a door prize to give you because we'd give it to you. That was right on the mark. And what percentage rated their schools as doing a fair or poor job? Raise your hand if you think below 50% said fair or poor. Okay, raise your hand if you said above 50% rated fair. Yeah, absolutely right. We weren't surprised by that one. Okay, more pop quiz. Shout out a word. I'm going to go to this side of the room. They asked students to describe how they felt in school. What word? There are 3 key words that they used most of all. What's one word? Yes. Bored, of course. That's kind of easy. What's the second one? This side of the room. Stressed, yes. And the third one, tired. So imagine that. Young people in America overwhelmingly just use those 3 words to describe their school experience. Last question. When they were asked what they wanted from their school experience, there were 2 answers that they gave. What's one answer that they overwhelmingly gave? Let's go to the middle of the room again. Hands-on learning, absolutely. And the other, an education that prepared them for a job or a career. Exactly right. And so it's with that in mind that we open up this conversation. And let me introduce Margarita, Geleske from Uncharted Learning, a distinguished entrepreneurship education organization. Myles, Gage, the distinguished young entrepreneur. Ryan Oliver from Build.org, another great entrepreneurship organization, and Jasmine Lawrence. By the way, Jasmine and Myles are alumni of the NFTE program. So let's open up our conversation with that frame in mind, with all of those negatives, but trying to find the positives. And let me start with you, Margarita and Ryan. Tell us about your models and why they are the solution, why they represent the opposite of what American students said their experience was like. What does Uncharted do that is the opposite of what American students said their school is like?
Well, since you're all here overnight, we can keep going, right? Yeah. Uncharted Learning, our signature program at the high school level. Some of you who I recognize in the audience know us through Incubator EDU. We're a program that is for high school students that is authentic, true to the entrepreneurship process, rigorous, and it is for credit. So meaning it's in the curricular day of a high school. Now with what JD had asked in terms of questions, and you all did a great job responding to his questions. I think you did, plants in the audience here. But in terms of boredom and it doesn't reflect me, what we have baked into our program is student voice and choice, as well as relevancy. And let me back up real quick, and then we'll pass it on. Student voice and choice. If a student doesn't have the opportunity to say, this is what I want to learn and why, what you get is no buy-in, no engagement. And for those of you, mostly adults in this room, think about your own work situation. If you don't have a voice, if you don't have the opportunity to weigh in terms of what the mission is or how to achieve those goals, how excited are you to show up every single day ready to roll, ready to problem solve, ready to take it to the next level? And in terms of relevancy, I don't know about you, but most every adult I know and young person needs to earn a living. So they need to be able to understand that connection between what am I learning in a school situation and what does it mean to me. So I think student voice and choice, as well as the relevancy for a future. Those are the things that make our 4-credit program distinctive.
Ryan, among Build's many programs is the Build Design Challenge, which sounds hands-on and responsive to what students said they wanted. Is it?
Yes, it is. Thank you. Absolutely. I think, and I resonate with a lot of what Margarita said in terms of the fundamentals of what entrepreneurship education brings to schools and learning environments. Build.org is a national nonprofit. We use the power of entrepreneurship education to propel youth in under-resourced communities with career skills, entrepreneurial mindset, and opportunity. Ultimately, our goal is to help youth become CEOs of their own lives. Entrepreneurship is a powerful experiential vehicle for that, and I really resonate with the relevance and the real-world rigor of that, right? So the design challenge that JD mentioned is an interactive, experiential way to understand human-centered design, sometimes called design thinking, which is used by companies around the world, universities, Stanford D School, which we were founded in East Palo Alto, just across the freeway. Massive disparities that we're addressing right next to each other. But the human-centered design process and these experiential tools really unleash that potential and creativity in youth, so they have a replicable, real-world process that also brings their passion and innovation and creativity. And so that's really the essence of it. And I would add to that something that is increasingly important for us is using teachers as champions and really empowering, putting in the hands of educators these tools to integrate into existing courses, to bring entrepreneurship off the sidelines and into the actual DNA and core of the school experience. So it's no longer a roll the dice whether you get one of these programs in your school, but it just becomes part of your regular school experience for all youth, and particularly youth in under-resourced communities who are especially well-positioned to be incredible entrepreneurs and innovators because of lived experience.
I want to say, whether it is the Build program or Uncharted program or the Nifty program, you hear entrepreneurship education. And I don't want anyone in this audience, if you're not familiar with any of our organizations, to be misled in thinking that there isn't serious literacy and numeracy going on. It just is done in a dramatically different way that starts with the interest of the student and the passion of the student in mind, and is honed and refreshed through practices and pitches and building a business plan. So that's where our two distinguished Nifty alumni come in. Each of you, and I know your stories, so I can't wait for you to share them. Each of you really turned your experience in the Nifty program into something big for you. Jasmine, get us started. Walk us through your story, because I consider you a Renaissance woman. And it's not just because of your company, but all the other things that you've done that, to my mind, speak to what it means to have an entrepreneurial mindset. So please, introduce yourself and share your story.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to see the audience kind of nodding along, Margarita and Ryan, as you're kind of explaining what your program does. And you're saying it, and I'm like, yes. Yes, until a program like one of these transforms your life, it's really hard to imagine kids having an idea, deciding to start a business to actually solve a problem in their community and actually have a positive outcome. It's like a great idea to think about, but it truly can happen. I was one of those under-resourced kids that Ryan was talking about, and I wrote an essay and got accepted into what was called Biz Camp 20 years ago. And it was a 2-week program. NYU actually hosted us, and in a week, they taught us all about how to make a business plan, how to spot problems in your community, and to look at what skills you have on hand today, or what support you have from mentors or parents in your community to start an organization that was targeting addressing that problem. And at the end of the week, I think they gave us $50 to go launch that business. And I went through the wholesale district in New York and bought all the ingredients that I needed and put together my marketing plan and ended up making like $68 by the end of the week and $18 of profit. And it was so empowering. I was like, what?
Better than Uber.
Like, right. I mean, this was at like 13 years old. I was like, okay, I have a way to bring money to support my family and to help myself. But most importantly, I took the idea of like health and fitness for women and ended up launching a fashion line of like promising and promoting kind of clothing wear. And like while I completely shut down that business after the camp, I went home with that sense of like, of power, of that I could do anything. What had happened to me years earlier was that I'd lost most of my hair due to a chemical relaxer. Back in the 90s, women wanted long, straight hair, and that was the only way to be deemed beautiful. And for me, as a child model, as Little Miss Hawaii in 1994, I was consumed with how my image made people pay attention to me. The way I carried myself, the way that I looked was a huge barrier and access to me for opportunities. And so after leaving the Nifty camp, I started a company called BodyWorks. And BodyWorks manufactures and distributes natural hair and body care products at almost every major retailer in the US, in London, in Australia, in the United Arab Emirates. We're international. For the last 20 years, we've launched over 50 products and made millions of dollars and touched thousands of lives. It's been incredible to start a movement that says, the way that your hair grows out of your head is fine. Let me help you take care, right? I know, right? Let me help you take care of it and nourish yourself. I think, but the game changer in terms of social impact was taking those products and using them as a platform to have a conversation. When I'm with women, they're naked, they're vulnerable, they're making decisions about how they're gonna show up in the world. And we can have conversations about their mental health, about their desire to start businesses, about how they exist in their relationships with their partners. So much conversation I'm able to have with women in the Black and brown community about topics that get overlooked by meeting them in an intimate space. And so I've been able to do that for the last 20 years alongside pursuing a career in tech where I've had the opportunity to work at Microsoft and Meta and Google as a product manager because they love my entrepreneurial spirit. They love how I can take a look at data and problems and really recognize where are we where there are underrepresented communities that need our support, that need our help. What are innovative ways that we can turn this around in areas that might have been overlooked and forgotten? So it's really been exciting to see the parallels of entrepreneurship and that career in tech. And yeah, I can't thank you enough, JD.
And that's what I love about your story because let's give a round of applause. Absolutely. And you're going to get another great one in a second. And what I love about your journey, Jasmine, is that you just think, audience, about the words she was saying and the concepts underlying it. It was that one experience as a teenage young pseudo entrepreneur that I think opened up your mind to say, oh, this little way of doing it was successful. Let me try it again, but I'm going to try it bigger, and then I'm going to try it for real, and then now it really takes hold. But beyond that, the fact that you're an engineer, the fact that you're a computer scientist, the fact that you, in addition to running your company, you've also had these high-profile, hard-to-get jobs, to me speaks to the entrepreneurial mindset in the sense of just opening your mind to the idea that you can do these things. And Myles, I feel like your story is similar because you're somebody who had an affinity for investing to begin with, I think, before you experienced the Nifty program. But boy, you took the program and then combined that in a way that really ran with it. So please share your story.
All right, yeah, so I'll try to bring it on home. So to give you all some context, I went to a public school on the south side of Chicago, and a part of our elementary curriculum was personal finance. So we started learning about investing, economics, and ultimately entrepreneurship starting in first grade. And in sixth grade, in addition to managing the class's portfolio, we also had to come up with business plans. So at the time, my first business was like customizing t-shirts and shoes. But for that was cool and it was empowering because I like sneakers and et cetera, et cetera. But on top of that, I also mentioned that we were learning about the basics of investing and things like that. So in 6th grade, I also started investing in the stock market too. And then in 2008, I ended up writing an essay about how I plan on financing my college tuition, with my main point being liquidating my stock portfolio. One of my prizes was a full ride scholarship to go to a private school in Chicago. And so one of the people that I ultimately met there was my future business partner, and we bonded over our fact that we were the nerdy kids that liked investing. So now fast forwarding to 2016, I'm just thinking about my upbringing and talking about the importance of early exposure, me investing, and understanding how that opened up so many doors. So around this time in 2016, there was this platform called Robinhood. You all may have heard of it. So a lot of our friends from high school would come to me and my business partner and ask us, like, what company should we buy? And they were doing all the wrong things. But that's when the light bulb clicked in our head, especially for me. I'm like, oh, this is such a teachable moment. And for me, I was able to encompass all of my experience and that early exposure to ultimately create this platform that teaches people how to invest, but more importantly is a digital financial education solution. And so I'm tying it all together because what I always felt was I wish that people could have attended an area or the school that I went to, but they couldn't. But I knew the kids had smartphones, and I knew teachers were looking for more digital solutions. So that's the problem that we were solving. But I think, again, all of that empowerment came from that early exposure with Nifty, because it forced me to do something. Maybe in 6th grade I didn't want to come up with a business plan, but I had to. So now, it's 10 years later, I already knew what to do, but now it was a little bit more crisp because we really knew what the problem that we were solving. But nonetheless, I was able to take my experience, and it's literally like, that's the solution. So without a program like that, or what some of our other colleagues are saying, I don't know where I would be. But I think all of that stuff is great, especially for the modern learner, because I think a lot of entrepreneurship is interdisciplinary. So a lot of those skills are applicable to other things. So if you tell a kid they have to start a business, they have to make money. So the first subject that I'm thinking about is that makes them excited about their math. Additionally, they're going to have to do research to understand market dynamics. All right, so now that's tapping into social studies and history because they have to go do their research. And then you have to be able to put the whole plan together and make it cohesive, so now you're tapping directly into English and writing. So that in alone is going to get a student to take some of their other core subjects seriously. So that's my story. Yeah.
And the name, yes, thank you very much. And the name of your business is?
Oh, it's Rapunzl. And we came up with the name Rapunzl because people often view the world of investing and the returns of Wall Street as something that's perched in an ivory tower that's often thought of inaccessible to people. So we're essentially rolling down that hair to provide equitable access to the returns of Wall Street.
And what I love about the stories of so many Nifty learners, so many Uncharted learners, so many Build learners, is that they take that impulse to make money for themselves, but they do it in a way that really helps and serves others. When I first came to Nifty about 5 years ago, I used to say there are key categories of Nifty businesses. There's products and services, there's social entrepreneurship broadly, and then there's app-based businesses. But Myles, your business in particular is an example of a fourth category that I've really come to see, especially among Gen Z, which I call equity infrastructure, which is business ideas that go beyond even traditional notions of social entrepreneurship and are really focused on opening up doorways that are closed to others through the magic of entrepreneurship. So thank you both for all that you've done for the communities that you're wishing to serve through your businesses. And now let me bring it back to Margarita and Ryan. So one of the things that has been crucial for all of our models is the mentorship angle, because it's not just curriculum. It's, again, getting back to that interpersonal, that hands-on, that real-life engagement aspect that American students are saying they want and yearn for. It's crucial to all of our models. Tell me a little bit about how that plays out for Uncharted and then again at Build.
I do want to make clear that professional educators, the teachers, are just an incredible core to the entrepreneurship education experience. So they're a part of the Uncharted learning programs. But you can only stretch a good soul and a good mind so far. And our students work in teams, and they will easily be 4 to 5 different teams, different business categories in the same classroom. So while the teachers are working to get concepts across, be those learning guides on the side, this is where also the community's business people, entrepreneurs, have the opportunity to bring it all to life. So in our program, a student team will speed meet potential volunteer mentors, and they'll get matched. Sometimes it works with the industry that student team is considering developing a business around. And sometimes there's a great match for other reasons. But the idea is for that volunteer mentor in our programs to help finally apply what's being taught in the larger classroom to that student's specific business. Because imagine Myles' great passion and energy for finance and having it be a tech world versus Jasmine's natural hair products. These two different entrepreneurs are likely to need different kinds of guidance. And so last I heard, a teacher's not been able to just Xerox themselves and apply themselves as a mentor to all these teams. And this is where volunteers are really tremendous.
And Ryan, from the build angle?
Yeah, and this is a actually exciting sort of area of innovation for us in thinking about how to meet the demand, because thankfully there's increasingly huge demand for entrepreneurship education and experiences in schools, but how to scale up the volunteer experience to make sure that all students get access to incredible outside volunteers and experts in that way. We have a very similar model to Margarita in that sense of team-based mentors. So mentors come and they are matched with a team of students. We're evolving a bit. We've always said with Build, you can volunteer 2 hours a week or 2 hours a year. So giving access to many adults to be able to contribute and engage. That might be as a judge in a pitch competition, in a one-day experience or a marketing event, or it might be as that, coming in every other week for an hour into the classroom and engaging. One of the things that we've started to shift as we move our programming into the school day to ensure that it's accessible to the students we want to reach that can't necessarily or won't necessarily come after school. We used to have a lot of programming 5 to 7. Why did we have programming 5 to 7? That's when the adults could show up. Was it good for kids? No, not really. It's a long time for them to be hanging out at school. We're competing with sports. Pushing into the school day, make sure that it's accessible, but then that poses a design problem, right? Where do you find adults that can come out of their job, even twice a month and come to a school site that might be, far away from where their business is? So in order to bridge communities, we're thinking more about near-peer mentors and really creating a pipeline from our Build students in high school into students who are in college, hopefully many of our alumni who are now serving as interns or working with College Corps. They're actually getting paid to volunteer. And then those college interns and mentors and volunteers are getting access to the corporate partnerships and the professionals who are a little further down the line. And hopefully, as we evolve, getting access to special opportunities like internships by being part of this community of builders and creating that that really intergenerational pipeline of community. So that's sort of what we're playing with and still trying to refine.
And so interesting for me to hear how each of our organizations all deploy mentors, but slightly differently. At NFTE, and I'll be just frank, NFTE is underwritten significantly by corporate philanthropy. And in our case, that has turned out to be a really good thing, because what we have found is that there are plenty of companies out there, and I'll name some of them: EY, Goldman Sachs, PayPal, Intuit, SAP, Mary Kay. I could go on. But they really are concerned about building skills and attributes in their future workforce. And part of their corporate social responsibility agendas are around making the match between what their employees want to get engaged with, what their priorities are for their future workforces as companies, and whom to plug into in education systems where a lot of this work is focused. So I will say at Nifty, one thing that we have really doubled down on in the last 5 years is being emphatic about creating the next generation of entrepreneurs. So we represent the broad entrepreneurial mindset, but the reason you see two Nifty active business owners here is because we're really fully focused on building active entrepreneurs who start and sustain companies. A wonderful byproduct of our engagement with corporate partners is that it opens the door to, again, just as you described in your own stories, but differently, it opens the door to an awareness of jobs and sectors and careers that many students just don't get exposure to in their daily lives and their families and communities because of deeply embedded structural equity issues. And so we're very happy that we can fix that disjuncture in many ways and give students access to people who look like them, who are successful professionals, who can serve functionally as competition judges, people who tweak the business plan, people who you pitch to, but also represent a role model for a future career as well. So Myles and Jasmine, let me take it back to you. Talk about your mentors, what that was like. What did that experience mean to you? What impact has it left? Jasmine, you go first.
For sure. When I first got started, the Nifty Biz Camp was only 2 weeks. And, at the time I was staying with my grandmother in Harlem. But after September 11th, my family had actually left New York City and moved to South Jersey. And so there weren't people talking about making it big or being an entrepreneur in my little New Jersey neighborhood. There was no one to talk to about iterating on my business plan or how do I get a trademark. At the time, Nifty actually had an incubator program that I applied for. And my uncle, who was a photographer in New York, would actually drive 2 hours every week to bring me to that incubator program because of that word that you said, access. Being able to have conversations with other entrepreneurs, being able to get pro bono legal and financial advice and services from other adults who are willing to volunteer their after work hours was transformative for me. It, raised the margins on my product. It helped me secure my ideas. It helped me to get in front of, like you said, access to pitch competitions to raise funds because I started my company with my allowance, right? I didn't have some great legacy fund from my parents to build this on. That was really phenomenal for me. And then even moving forward within the tech space, kind of the vision for the kind of entrepreneur I wanted to be was set by a mentor for my first internship who said, "Are you a Viking or are you a farmer?" I'm like, what is that? A Viking is someone who is like a little bit risk averse, who doesn't mind going out and exploring uncharted worlds and seeing new opportunities. And I was like, oh, that's me. I'm a Viking. I'm a Viking. Or a farmer who doesn't mind kind of iterating in the same space, trying to drive new potential and bringing new technologies to an environment that is critical for being sustained. And I was like, love farmers, but totally not me, totally not my mindset. And so, just having access to those people who are able to speak life, to make introductions, to give me feedback on my LinkedIn, on my charisma, on the way that I carry myself, these things were phenomenal. And now being on the other side, right? Now I'm in the Forbes 30 under 30 community, right? I was a list maker in 2017. I'm able to go and give back, right? And be able to recruit other entrepreneurs who are doing amazing things in their youth to speak at some of the Nifty conferences, to participate in the World Series of Innovation, or just to sit down in the Founders Forum and really push people the way that I was kind of nudged and pushed in the beginning. So it's full circle, and I just highly recommend that you check if you are at an organization that does kind of the corporate matching, that they would potentially do it with your time as well. I know some of the organizations I've worked with actually give like $18 or $20 an hour when you volunteer in these organizations. So I would say definitely look into those things. You might be missing an opportunity to give back in a way that will not just help those students, but when I talk about kind of helping them navigate these challenges, it reiterates in myself what my skills are, what I've been through, what I've navigated, what I've overcome, and gives me an appreciation for what I'm blessed to be able to do every day, and really just gives them a contact that they can reach out to as they aim to climb higher than where they might have started.
And thank you so much for paying it forward and being an exemplar and mentor for us and future Nifty students. Myles, talk about mentorship on your journey.
Well, mentorship was so huge, and it's funny. So one of my mentors is Arnie Duncan, and he actually was speaking at a panel earlier today, and then another one is actually here too. So a lot of them would put me in these positions to be up here now. But basically, so I mentioned that each sixth grade class was given $20,000 of real money to manage. So when I graduated eighth grade, I made sure that I had relationships with the founders of the school, which included a CEO of an investment firm and the former Secretary of Education. And so as I've basically been paying their mission forward, it's opened a lot of doors. And I've also I like to surround myself with people that know more than me. It's like, there's no need to know it all. Why don't I go talk to someone that already made that mistake so I don't have to? And that's what I've basically tried to insulate myself, was having those people around me. And through mentorship, that ultimately opened access to capital, and that helped us ultimately raise money when we were trying to start an app when we were just fresh out of college, and it seemed like a crazy idea. But luckily, people believed in what we were doing, and sometimes good advice that I got was, when you ask people for help, sometimes it comes in the form of checks. So that's been great. And I literally would not be here without that. And so one component of Rapunzl is we host a financial literacy summer camp in Chicago, and now this year in New York, for high school students from underserved communities. And basically, it's a 2-week-long camp. We do 3 sessions, and we teach a different topic during the morning. So it might be investing, it might be real estate investing. But the cooler part is, during the afternoon, we bring in subject matter experts that either have careers or either entrepreneurs in this space. So now this allows the students to start building their network. It exposes them to the different careers that they may not known to exist. And for me, I just thought about early exposure was everything. I wouldn't be up here without that early exposure and being able to take advantage of those opportunities. So now we're paying it forward with the camp, because now we have students that have participated, and now they end up connecting with one of the speakers on LinkedIn, and then they have an internship at a JP Morgan or something like that. And I'm like, there you go. And and they'll continue to pay it forward too. So yeah.
And just focusing on that last part of your response, that process of, oh, I spoke to so-and-so and they gave me an opportunity. We know that there are certain communities where that happens all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And there are other communities where that never happens. And so the beauty of the mentorship, beyond the functional pieces and how it connects to entrepreneurship education, really is about breaking down those barriers that prevent young people from communities of color, from lower income communities who are often denied access to the types of networks that you got. And I don't want you all to think that you have to have Arnie Duncan as a mentor. No, that must have been a little scary, actually.
It was. Yeah, he's tall. I've known him since I was 6, so it was also like, hey, I've grown up with you. So
very good. But the point is, whether it's an everyday person, a solo entrepreneur, or someone who's a big name, the truth is that what we have found, I think, collectively across our organizations, is that corporate mentors, community mentors are really interested in helping, and they're really quite a bit more willing than you might assume in establishing a real relationship with a young person that oftentimes lasts outside the 4 walls of our programs. I was just, before coming in here, and it's another big name, but it's a good example. So we have a young man who was our national champion at Nifty a couple of years ago, Jose Rodriguez, who founded a company called Tazium. It's apparel and different products for people with disabilities. Tazium is autism scrambled, and he got the idea for his company because he has a brother with autism. Well, he prevailed in our national championship. He actually got a full ride to Babson College, which, as you know, is big on entrepreneurship. And today, he was visited by Tucker York, who is the co-head of global wealth at Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs happened to be having an area meeting in the Boston area, and he's been a supporter of Nifty for some time. He said, hey, let me go out and visit Jose because I remember him from the competition. I worked with him. I helped him. I want to see how he's doing. That's the power of mentorship across all of our organizations, and one one reason why we need to do more of this type of work along with the real quality curriculum. So as we wrap it up here in our last 5 minutes or so, Margarita, let me go to you first. What is when all is said and done, we've talked a lot about the benefits, but what do you find is the greatest benefit of entrepreneurship education for the students that you work with at Uncharted?
I think one of the lasting benefits is that entrepreneurship is a way of learning that gives purpose to much of the academic learning that our students are experiencing in our schools. So, Myles, you mentioned this in terms of finance. There's no more applied math than there is in understanding cash flow and your budget. As one young lady said as we were working through her business model, dang, that's math. And so I think that's very simple. It's offering purpose to their learning. So it's not esoteric, it's not cerebral. Here's why. Here's why I need to understand this. Here's why I need to be a good communicator, because I want to let people know what my business is all about so we can either do good for others or do good for the sake of the business.
Ryan, flip side of that question, what do you find is the biggest challenge in scaling entrepreneurship education, in convincing people what we know to be true, that it's a method that is really engaging and that works?
I would say the biggest barrier there is really the pigeonholing of entrepreneurship as business education. And I had this, right? I have empathy for this as a social studies teacher in high schools and in under-resourced communities for 12 years, right? That was my thing. I had no interest in business. It was boring. It was capitalistic. It was, extractive, right? All the things. Entrepreneurship flipped a switch for me, right? It's the power of developing a creative idea, of having a sense that you can have big ideas. And I think that's what's infectious, to answer the first question is for young people at a critical point to recognize in a school setting, no less, that is often boring and numbing, to say, oh no, I have worth. I have ideas that people like, that are interesting, that are new, that are fresh. That's addictive, right? That's something you don't forget. Those are experiences people talk about later in their lives, about, oh, this one project, like school sucked, but this one thing I created, a business, in 6th grade I did this thing, right? That changes lives. And I think for educators that we work with, for them to understand that the entrepreneurial mindset and experience is something that should just be a human right. Like, it's what we need to adapt in the world that we live in. And we can't pigeonhole it as, oh, that's that business class, or that's that business pathway, or that's that business school over there. I think really, just broadening our perspective of what does it mean to be entrepreneurial versus a business person.
And so I just want to echo both of those points. So yes, I think entrepreneurship unlocks the purpose in learning and that whole interdisciplinary thing and gets you excited about math, right, and other things, but it also unlocks purpose in life. And like you were saying, especially with students from underserved communities, they may feel that they're not seen and they don't have a voice. But when you find something that you're good at, you're solving a problem, that's empowering. And that encourages you to keep going, especially when you might be and feel like you're in these insurmountable situations or just think that no one's seeing you. So it just makes it's just very empowering. And I think that while not everyone's going to run a business, you're an entrepreneur in your day-to-day life. You're a CEO of your life. And I think that education helps you have autonomy over your life and allows you to unlock your purpose and do what you're passionate about, because let's face it, we all have to work. So when you're doing work that you're passionate about, it doesn't really feel like work, right? And that's what you want kids to feel like. It's purpose. And so it's like we like to trick kids into learning. So that's what it does.
Jasmine, bring us home.
Yeah, I mean, you absolutely nailed it. I think, like you said, we all have to get jobs. We all have to make an income. But, you know, even if this sounds naive, I still think that inside of everyone, we have this desire to change the world. And when you're an educator and you're like, yeah, I got to teach them this curriculum because the state told me to, math, science, reading, whatever. Like, imagine if you could challenge these students in kindergarten, in third grade, in fifth grade about the hunger crisis that we have around the world and what they can do about it. Not just deciding what they're going to have for lunch, but look at these. I mean, it's amazing. Look at the the UN Sustainable Development Goals and really set these kids' education around solving the biggest problems of our world. That's what this entrepreneurial education is unlocking. And for me, yes, I decided to start a company, but I also decided to get a job. So even if you don't have maybe the extroversion or some of the skill sets that maybe make you thrive within the business world, you can still be a productive member of an organization whose mission is moving the world in the direction that you want to see it going. And I think that's something just incredible.
Thank you all. And I'll finish with, yes, please. And I'll finish with this simple statement. It's my personal belief that everybody on some level in the world wants to make a difference. Everybody on some level in the world wants to be the best version of themselves. And we found that entrepreneurship education is a fantastic vehicle for doing that. So if this panel has shown you the same, please come talk to all of our organizations, Nifty, Uncharted, Build. We'd love to work with you. We'd love to share more about our journeys and our stories. But thank you very much for attending today's panel. We appreciate it.